Make sure the notification to recording is started. It started. All right. G'day, folks. Welcome. It's me, Greg. I'm back. We're doing Lunch and Learn. It's Friday. Relax. Get yourself some lunch. I've got a coffee today. Made it just before we started. It's a pretty good one. Today, we're going to be talking about data visualization and data storytelling and everything to do with the way that we actually put stuff on the screen. I think it's been too long since we've spoken about this subject. I think we've spoken about pretty much everything else. And if I'm honest, data visualization is I think it's the reason I started doing this in the first place. I reckon data vis is probably where a lot of people started. Because yeah, Excel's cool, but it's kind of boring. And so I think data visualization is one of the most exciting parts of what we do. It also requires both sides of the brain. There's so many interesting things to talk about it. I've invited a special guest to talk data viz with me today. It's Kerry Kolosko. Hi, Kerry. How you doing?
Hey, good, thank you.
That's good. Welcome. Thank you for coming to Lunch and Learn. This is pretty freeform, Kerry. So I said you don't have to prepare anything because we literally just make it up. It's mostly about me learning about stuff. So I'll just ask questions and then answer them however you like. There's no pressure.
Okay.
But we do appreciate you joining us, and everybody else is here for the ride, so they might ask questions too, I'm sure. So if you don't know Kerry Kolosko, she's got an awesome blog. It's kerrykolosko.com. I'm going to bring it up on the screen. Here it is.
So
Explorations in data
imaginative.
storytelling. So it's so imaginative. kerrykolosko.com. Explorations in data storytelling. She talks about data storytelling. She talks about everything Power BI. I love this Adelaide rainfall one. Actually, I'm going to talk about rainfall in a sec because I did a viz, and that's actually something I want to build in Deneb. That's probably going to form the basis of what we're doing. Anyway, look at all these cool things that Kerry does. Check out her blog. It's pretty awesome. It's a great way to learn about Deneb. It's a great way to learn about all things visualization in Power BI. Probably before we get started, do you have like a standard introduction that you do, Kerry, about what you do and what you're up to? No, you just kind of wing it.
Yeah, I do. But yeah, I'm primarily a data visualization consultant. This, that, and the other. All things BI as well. So yeah, but data viz is my hobby. It's both my profession and my hobby, which is a bit sad.
It's funny, isn't it? That's I feel like a lot of people still think of data viz from, particularly when you're coming from the Power BI world. Like I am an operational reporting guy, right? I build reports that, and they talk about how many widgets we sold last week and how many things happened and all that kind of stuff. And data visualization is like, it's almost like the art form that sits on top of all these numbers, right?
Yeah, I definitely would agree. Sorry.
So yeah, no, you're right. No, it's a funny old game. Anyway, what I wanted to do when getting started, what I wanted to do from everybody is I want to find out what everybody's favorite data viz is, right? So I've got a couple of data visualizations that kind of got me into data visualization. So when I first started, I was working in operational IT, doing my thing. I was like, I did help desks and I did ERP support. I was an IT guy. I'm an IT guy. And I saw a TED talk by a guy who does, I think it's the Data is Beautiful guy. Have you seen that TED talk, Kerry? Do you know the one I'm talking about? It's pretty famous one.
I'm going to find it. It was the same talk where he talked about the life expectancy bubbles, wasn't it?
Life expectancy bubbles, exactly. So that and the snake oil chart. Has he got the snake oil sales chart? Or the snake oil
tree map. I think he spoke about the tree map as well. So yeah, no, I have seen it.
Maybe. So there's a couple. There's the Hans Rosling one, which is that life expectancy one. That's a fantastic TED talk. So I'm going to find that one and I'll show you that. And we actually show this in the standard Microsoft training. They have the Hans Rosling stuff. So I'll show you what that one is. I'll give you a link in the chat as well, everybody. But the best stats you've ever seen. That's the TED talk. So I saw this TED talk. I'll bring it up on the screen here. My computer's really bad at switching screens at the moment. So you haven't seen this TED Talk. I'll put a link in the chat. This is Hans doing animated bubble charts, and then he commentates over the top of it like it's a horse race. It's hilarious, right? and 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 this is the power of like a single viz, right? Because there's only one, like in my world, in the operational reporting world, everybody wants to put like 200 charts on a dashboard and let's see how many things we can fit in the screen. And this was such an amazing example of somebody who just like created a single visualization and then used it to tell this whole data story. And I just think it's like, and so you see this and you're like, man, that's so cool. That's what I want to be doing with numbers. He's really only talking about a couple of numbers though, right? He's talking about fertility rate, life expectancy, and then I think there's this, is it this, the size of the bubble is something as well, maybe the population. I think maybe the population. And so there's only 3 numbers here and 1 visualization, and it's animated, so it moves over time, and you can see it moving over time if I play for a sec. I know you can't hear the sound. So I don't know. Hang on, where's the animated bit? Oh, there we go. So it's animated. So I think that's a really interesting, like when I saw that and I was like, oh my God, that's what I want to be doing. I want to be building visualizations that, like, I want to take this operational world that we live in, which is all tables and Excel spreadsheets and pie charts, and I want to tell stories like that with that kind of company data. Does that make sense? I feel hopefully that makes sense. So put in the chat, what is your favorite data viz? Hopefully people have already started putting stuff in. I want to know what's your, oh, Michael's always reliable for thing. Is this Gapminder one, Michael?
Gapminder is Hans Rosling's site, which has all the data sets and all his talks and all kinds of
nice.
stuff.
Cool. So this is the site for Hans Rosling. Yeah. So he's an awesome. He was really formative and inspirational. And so there was this other TED Talk that I saw. I'm pretty sure it was a TED Talk. Maybe it wasn't a TED Talk. I'll find it though. Let me see if I can find it. David McCandless. Is that the tree maps guy? Maybe it is.
I think so. The cultures, colors across cultures visualization.
Yeah,
I think he did tree maps as well.
Yeah, that's right. And he's got the $1 billion-ogram. Here we go. So he does this one. Oh man, I'm so bad at moving things between my screens. Right, this guy. Or TED Talky type stuff.
That's right.
So he's got this one, right? Now, I am not a fan of a tree map. I'm going to put it to you. I'm going to put it there right now. But this is probably the only successful one. Actually, I've seen 2 successful tree maps in my life. One of them is this one, and the other one is the one where it shows all of the stocks and whether they're red or green. I don't know if you've seen that. I'll bring that one up as well. Stock market. Open that one up and drag the thing around. This one. Oh, it's not very big. I also kind of like this as a tree map. So these are all different stocks. So this is the technology sector, and then this is Apple, and this is Microsoft, and then this has gone up, so it's green, and this one's gone down, so it's red. Quite like that as a tree map. That's the only other one that I've seen where a tree map kind of work. Rectangular pie charts, exactly, Darren, exactly. So I saw these TED Talks, and I was like, I do boring data. And, like, I don't know, this is a controversial opinion. Maybe people will be, I might upset people here, but BI was kind of like the boring part of IT back in the day. And hopefully, like it was just oh, we're going to regenerate the cube, and we've got to create a data model, and then we're going to produce these tables of reports, and everyone was like, okay, yeah, great. And I saw data visualization as a thing that could transform that whole space into something that is, this could be like the coolest part of IT, you know? And I think that's what got me into the whole thing in the first place. So, Kerry, where did you come from in your, like, where were you before data visualization, and then how did you kind of get into this kind of space?
Reporting analyst type roles,
Yeah.
sort of portfolio management and things like that. So I did a lot of, data analysis and portfolio analysis, and then, needed to report that upwards. So I had quite a fair bit of executive reporting background and experience. And then there's different methods then of sort of creating that narrative for the executive audience. And that would be in different methods. So you'd have, your normal board reporting, you'd have your presentation styles, and then you've got your, your infographics and your, yearly reports, right? And so they all have different levels of communication and succinctness. And then particularly around the presentation side of things, the idea was to sort of really have a very clear and succinct message. And so I was always in that kind of space. And it was when I was trying to sort of save time in the reporting process. So back in the day, you would spend 2 weeks sort of chasing your portfolio, your projects around, trying to get your updates, and then going through the reporting cycle and doing your drafts and updating and things like that. And it was a 2-week reporting cycle. So my desire to shorten that and automate that is what got me into BI and then into data visualization from that. So through that sort of desire, I turned the 2-week reporting cycle down into 2 days through this, Power BI and this automation and things like that. And then the desire to keep going and to keep perfecting and to keep making that communication and that insights and things quicker and faster is what sort of had me delve into the data visualization space. That and my passion as well for, I'd done a study in social science and psychology, and I really enjoyed the cognitive science and perception. Was actually probably the better part of my psychology degree, and bringing that into the mix as well is sort of how it all sort of started. And
it's the whole psychological thing is an interesting part, isn't it?
Yeah, and of course I've got a passion for the arts as well. Not particularly great at it, but it sort of helps bring in a little bit of fun into the mix as well.
Yeah. So this viz here is the one that I was talking about, the snake oil one. So they've got this. So David McCandless talks about it in his thing. But and I think this is the first time I looked at something and I was like, okay, data visualization is a thing that's actually going to be good. This came out quite a while ago, but it talks about all the different things that you can do, and then behind it is how much evidence that is there in terms of how good it actually works based on what you want. So green tea for cholesterol, for example, apparently there's a lot of evidence to say green tea is good for your cholesterol. So it's high here, and it's got there's a lot of bodies of study. So it's got a large bubble, and it's high, so it's got strong evidence to show that it's worth it. And then he's got the worth it line here, right? And I was like, this is such a great way to explore it. And in the on the website version, this is interactive. It's like like they kind of, the bubbles kind of interact with each other, they move around and bump into each other and stuff. It's a very cool way to kind of put this stuff together. So this is one of my favorite data vises, or this is one of my early ones where I was like, okay, I'm interested in this space. This isn't necessarily operational kind of reporting type stuff, but it is a really cool way to get a message across and sort of tell a story about these different things, and there is a data element to it. So I really liked this one. And I think now, having spent a bit of time in the industry and have built my fair share of kind of, all sorts of different front ends for Power BI. You know, like I think Power BI kind of falls into a few different categories. You've got your kind of interactive reporting, which is traditional kind of Power BI. Let's put some slices, let's put some interactivity in, let's put 6, you know, or 9 kind of charts on the page and watch them all interact with each other. I think that kind of analyst report or whatever has been the bread and butter of Power BI. And I think the data viz thing, I think of data visualization almost as its own category, where you're building something that is often only a single visualization like this, and a lot more thought has to go into not only like the story and the structure and all the rest of it, but also the underlying data and the research that you have to do to potentially build something that actually makes sense. It's quite a lot of work, right? And so I wanted to kind of explore this a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I've got a viz that I've always wanted to build, and I have built it before in Power BI, and it's got to do with rainfall, which is why I like your rainfall one so much, Kerry. I was like, damn, I wish I had thought of doing that the way you did it, but I had to do all these hacks to make it work in Power BI. And I was like, this would be a really good project to kind of try and build in Deneb. So I want to look at the existing one that I've got when I'll open it up in a sec. And then we'll talk a little bit about what makes a good data visualization. And then I'll start exploring maybe how we can potentially build it in Deneb. And if we run out of time, we run out of time. We might need to do some basic Deneb first because I'm really terrible at Deneb, but I pick up things pretty quickly, and I got ChatGPT, and I'm sure I can get it to do things for me too. So between those two things, I feel like we're going to be able to at least get something in Deneb up, and then maybe next week we'll do some more advanced Deneb if we need it. So that's kind of my plan. Anyway, that's the plan for today. Anyway, I still haven't Ellen says, I think my appreciation for data viz took root as a young kid visiting the interactive exhibitions of a museum. Yeah, museums are really good at it. Data viz is really big in media as well, like in newspapers and things like that. You'll often, I don't think there's a good history of really strong data visualization being used in newspapers as a part of journalism, and I think that's also where I got a good appreciation for it. Now, Darren's put in one of my favorite data vizzes. I was going to bring up Tufty, and actually the one I want to build is a Tufty viz, but this isn't it. But this is one of the more famous kind of Tufty examples of data visualization. So this is his favorite one. So if you don't know who Edward Tufte is, he's a guy at Princeton. He's a professor at Princeton. He's an absolute freak. I think he's a polymath. He writes a ton of books on data visualization and also visualization of anything to do with numbers. He's got some incredible coffee table books that you can buy, and they're so dense with information. They're a hard read because you can get through one paragraph and then your brain explodes because you have to think about it for a week. So he's definitely worth checking out. But this visualization here, which is really cool, he uses this as an example. It talks about Napoleon's march to Moscow. So this is Napoleon's army at the start over here on the left. And then as he goes towards Moscow, different things happen. And his army gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And this happens because, it gets colder and colder, and the army, some pieces of the army break off. And so the light color is the march towards Moscow, and then the black color is the march backwards. And you can see that by the time he got back to where he was in France, his army was basically decimated. And the interesting things about this viz is like, there's this concept of space, like the movement from left to right and then right to left of the armies. And you can see, it's almost like there's a map on top of it, so this over here is France and over here is Moscow, and you've got all of the places in between. You've got the concept of changing the legend so that as it moves to the right, it's the light color, and then moving back is the black color. Then there's this vertical kind of relationship with the weather. So the point is making this viz and it's not Tufty didn't make this visit. Someone else made it. I can't remember the name of the person actually. If someone puts it in the chat, that'd be good. But the point he's making here was about the cold, right? So it gets colder and colder and colder. And as it gets colder, the army gets more and more kind of decimated and stuff like that. So there's like this really incredible story that gets told in a single visualization. Although you could argue there's two visualizations because there's one at the bottom here and then this one. It's like a what kind of chart would you even make this as? Is that like a? It's like a.
It's like an area plot or multiple area plots on top of each other.
It's like a plot chart. Yeah, I don't know. It's a really interesting one though. I really like it.
It's amazing. It was all done by hand as well.
Yeah. And so I imagine he's like measuring the width of his line here, and then changing it as time goes on, or as he gets So each millimeter represents X number of people or whatever. I wonder if it's to scale. And I can't read French, so I don't know what that says. But
I've put a link to an English version of the chart in the chat.
Oh, have you? Oh, thank you very much, Shelley. Always good for a link. Oh yeah, here it is. The figurative map of the French army in the Russian campaign. Oh, that's a much nicer high-res version. M. Minard, the Inspector General of Bridges and Roads. Oh, that's cool. So he was a bridge and road dude.
Gentleman.
All right. Gentlemen, sorry.
Bloody engineers.
So he started off with 42,000 and ended up with 10. Or 420,000, sorry, and ended up with 10,000. Oof.
I was going to say just 10. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
no, Napoleon didn't do well in Russia. Yeah. La dude, Darren says. All right, so I don't think we could. So this is a bit. So first question is, do you reckon we could make this in Deneb? This one, I don't know if this is even possible. I've thought about it, and I'm like, what would you? How would you even begin?
With Vega, yeah.
With Vega,
yeah. Don't ask me to do it though.
No. We'll get DMP in if we need to make something like this. So what are the elements of this? So this is what I find really interesting about DataVis is thinking about, well, what data structure do I need to support the visualization that's happening here? Because in the ideal world, you'd make something that was like interactive, right? And you could select 2 points or something and show the march of armies. But I don't know if it really makes sense to do it that way. But so what have you got? You've got the size of the army, the current size of the army, and then the time. So it's happening over time. So you'll have a date element to it. Then you have their like XY location or their lat long location. And then what you're doing is moving it over time and the army gets smaller and smaller as it happens over time. The lat long location determines where the point is on the line. I guess you could kind of do it. And then you've got the temperature in degrees below zero. So it was minus 26 on December 7, and then October 18. So is this linear as well? It doesn't look like is that linear as well is there a time element to it, or is it just a degrees element? I don't know. It's interesting. No, I think there's no time element. December 6, December 7, because it goes December 7, then it goes December 6, December 1, November 28. Oh, these are all, it's going backwards through time here because it's starting here in October and then moving backwards as this black line moves this way. Okay, so you read the time right to left. That's interesting. So this is left to right time. Okay, they're marching towards Moscow, then, they get their butts kicked and then they start marching back. And then by the time, because it's so cold in December, they're basically, there's none of them left. Wow. Very cool visualization. One of my favorites. The other Tufty one that I really like, and this is the one that we're going to try and do, is the, I'll bring it up, the New York weather one. New York, I've got to put in New York weather Tufty. Just synoptic panel and custom viz to draw out the map in segments, and then you point link data to it. That's true. Yeah, I like thinking about how potentially I could do that, because this is like, what is that type of graph where the segments break off, the big thick segments? I cannot remember it for the life of me. I really should know that. That's terrible.
Sankey.
Sankey, thank you. Sankey. That's exactly. It's like a Sankey, right? Because it's kind of going through and then changing. But yeah, it's almost like a weird Sankey chart. All right, this is the New York weather one. Oh, it's not a very high-res image. See if someone can find a high-res image of this one. Now, Tufty has in his book, he's like, this is good viz right here. This is how you make viz. And he says the reason why it's good is because we can see the macro effect by just following, by just glancing at it. And this is temperature, and then this is rain at the bottom. Okay, so the temperature goes up. We're talking about New York. So it goes up in the middle of the year, and then it comes down at the end of the year because it's cold at Christmas time. And the coldest time of year is kind of here. You've got each bar represents the min and the max for the day, which is the dark bar here. And then the light bar represents the all-time min and the all-time max, okay, for that particular day over all years. So that's what the light bar is. And then the dark kind of line through the middle here is your normal range. So this is like, was this an unusually cold day, for example, on this particular day? And you can see it was, because it's outside this. I think that's just 1 or 2 standard deviations away from the average or whatever it is of all time. And so then down here you've got the rain for January as a cumulative graph, and then the normal range for the rain as well. And so Tufty's like, the reason why this is good, you can see the macro, but you can also, on any given day, look at a piece of data. It's very dense in terms of the amount of information that's available in your to you if you want to look at that. Like, I can see at a glance that this here was like, not only was it almost the highest temperature that they got in New York for the whole year, but it was almost the all-time high that they've ever had since records began. And then again here, they had an unusually hot couple of days in November. And so I really love this this visualization, and I was like, I'm going to make this in Power BI, because this one you definitely can do in Power BI. And so that's what we did. And so I'm going to try. I'll show you what I did and how I hacked it together. So keep putting your favorite visors in the chat. If you've got other visors, I want to see them, because they're my 2 favorites, the 2 Tufty ones. I've seen some really nice heat map one stuff, and then there's been some cool ones that let's have a look at that one that you did on rain, Kerry, because I think that's cool. Before we get started on Power BI stuff. Now, if I can find did I just put stuff over the top of it? Let's go back to your blog.
Kerry
Kolosko.
Kerry. I love it when Americans pronounce my name Kerry. Kerry,
yeah. Is Kolosko, is that Russian or Eastern European?
Polish, yeah.
Polish. This one.
Yeah.
So this is another interesting one.
Because there's another version where I had little bubbles, a bubble plot at the bottom to look like puddles.
Oh, really? Oh, I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
One. Is that further down here, or is it? Oh no, simples.
Nope.
All right. All right. So I like this. I like this for rain, because this is where you go from. Can I actually open it in full screen? Let me try this. Like, open image in new tab. No. Oh, was it next to? I don't know how to use my. Oh, there we go. Zoom. So this is a similar idea, right? Except it's just the rainfall part, but then you make it look like rain. So man, it just turns into art, doesn't it? I feel like what eventually we're going to get to the point where you can, like, here's a business idea for you, Kerry, making data visualizations like this and then selling them on Etsy as like posters and you know, things like that. I don't know. I think there's a market for it. A market of maybe just me, but I love this kind of stuff.
And myself, yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. It's like it's some cool stuff. Wait, Darren's Darren's favorite visualization. Let's have a look at that. It's a good viz. Darren, thanks for your contribution. Appreciate you. Yeah, I can see. Oh my god.
Genius.
Ouch. So what's the biggest one? The grey. Where's that? Oh, other, of course. All right. That's an all-timer. Oh god, that's terrible. The snaky chart. I always call them snaky charts, you know, sand key charts, snaky, because yeah, pretty easy to misread. I agree. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to kind of build cool stuff like this in Power BI. We don't want to just do boring operational metrics. We want to have rainfall with little droplets and stuff like that. But so I've got a real, the reason why I want to build this other one, which I've lost now, but I'm sure I'll find it again at some point, is because this is a real operational. If you're doing statistical analysis on a process, this is the perfect chart for that. It's perfect, because usually what you're doing in statistical analysis on processes is you're looking at each step in the process, and then you want to know what was the cycle time on that process and what's the all-time high, what's the all-time low. Is what we're doing today unusual? Do we need to actually take action on something, or is it within the normal range and we don't need to take any action? Everything's fine, right? So even though this relates to weather and all this kind of stuff, this type of analysis, and I know you can do this with box plots and stuff like that, I just really like this version of it where it's bar charts and you have a low and a high. And so I reckon that we can actually build something that will actually be useful in your day-to-day job as well. So that's why I really like this one. It's a combination of being useful and it looks good, and you can't really go wrong. All right, I'm going to find my Melbourne weather viz, so what I did, and I did this like in 2017, but this is when I had enough time and energy to build all sorts of crazy stuff in Power BI and not just wing it on YouTube. Is I went and got a whole bunch of data. So the BOM has an awesome data on rainfall, which might have been the same.
Yes.
Did you use that for your
yeah,
for your one as well? Yeah, it's pretty good. Sorry,
Yeah.
let me just get rid of this YouTube video. So you can go to the BOM and you can get rainfall data. I'll just see BOM rainfall. That it knows what I mean. Yeah, climate data. So you can get a whole bunch of different things, and you can put it in pretty much any old location as well. And they've got meters all over Australia, and they do daily observations of not just rainfall but temperature and solar exposure and weather and climate. But so what I did was I downloaded the rainfall and the temperature ones because I was trying to recreate that chart. And I downloaded it from Melbourne since 1883 or whatever, because you can go back a fair way. And I noticed your Adelaide one went back to the 1800s as well, which is pretty awesome. So I downloaded all of that data, and I tell you what, if we get to it, I did notice that and we'll see what happens when we find an area. Or here, let's put Melbourne. Okay, so let's choose one of these. Botanical Gardens, that'll do. Oh yeah, we've got data since, it's a bit of a gap in the data there in the early 2000s, so that's okay. Now you usually can download all time, but I noticed it was a link, right? We'll see, and we got a station number, and you hit get data. So see, look at this at the top. It's like you've got the observation code and then display type and then the station number. So I was thinking we could build like a Power Query or something in Fabric to pull all this data for everywhere in Australia, steal all of the BOM's data, and then make like the ultimate Australia map of rainfalls back since the 1800s. Okay, that's my long-term plan for this.
Okay, I was going to say, did you
lunchtime.
actually do that? No.
No, I didn't do that. I wish I did. It would be so cool if I did. So, but that's what I want to do. So let's see if we can do that. All years of data, right? So what happens? We should be able to get it in a CSV. Oh, it comes out in a zip file. That's right. So we got to do a little bit of data engineering because we'll have to get this link, which is, I notice, is like JSP. I think I'm going to play around. I'm going to have a chat with my data engineers and see if we can actually make this happen, because that would be cool if we could get it to automatically download the latest set of data from the BOM every time we hit the refresh button, put it all into a giant data lake, and then put our viz on top of that. Then that would be crazy. Okay, so that's my lifetime goal, and then I'll retire from Power BI.
Try and get a job at BOM.
And then I'll have the best visualization, right? So they'll be like, well, this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
My wife
I'm
actually
pretty
used to work at BOM.
To get the API access, you have to pay for
I'm pretty
BOM.
sure you do. I'm pretty sure you do too. But and maybe I will pay to just get it.
You can
once
download all this stuff for free though, like just once-off extracts.
Yeah, one-off extracts you can certainly do for free, which is good. You know what'll happen is that they'll ban my IP because I'll be like downloading, I'll be smashing their servers, downloading data every day, getting 10-minute updates on the rain. Okay, let me see if I can find. Let me see if I can find our my thing. It's called Melbourne weather. As usual, I'm not prepared, so excuse me while I search my hard drive for my Power BI. Melbourne weather visual.pbix. Here it is. All right, while we'll be waiting for that to open. So looking back at our visual, we need to get a few things. So we need the min and the max of each day. So it needs to be daily data to make this kind of thing happen. We need the min and the max of each day. Then we need to calculate the normal range. We need to calculate the min all time and the max all time. And then we need to know how much rainfall there was. And then we need to know the normal range of the rainfall over all time. And I think that's every data point. So each day's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 data points. And then we do that for all the days of the year, and then we make it selectable over all the years. And then, so it hasn't opened yet. Is it opening? Hopefully it's opening. Let me double check.
Are you using unchecked, or are you using the normal filter pane?
I am using the normal filter pane right now.
Cool. Wonderful.
Is that good or bad?
Yes, no, that's good.
That's good. Hey, while we're waiting for my weather thing to talk, I know you have been involved in the new visualization stuff. Is there any secrets here? Well, don't tell us secrets, but is there where is Power BI going with the visualization piece? And what's your experience been so far, and what do you think does the future look bright, or do you think it's going to be only just okay?
I guess it depends on your personal sort of uses of Power BI. So there's certain people use Power BI in different ways. So some are more focused sort of on the Cartesians and the data analysis piece and, statistical analysis, and others are more sort of focused on just creating KPI dashboards, which are more like web applications and things like that. So there's a lot of, if Miguel's been very, very open in terms of telling people, what they can expect and what's coming. And there's no secrets in that respect at all. So go check out his lunch and learns and things like that to see what's on the roadmap in that respect. But highly customizable visuals is primarily the main focus that I see.
Yeah. That whole idea of oh, sorry, you dropped out there. Maybe I.
Yeah. So, and then longer term, there's going to be a lot more in terms of capability of the visuals as well.
Yeah. Awesome. So I actually haven't played around too much with the new card visual, which is that the only one that's been released so far in terms of the new set? I think that's all I've seen, but maybe I missed one. I really got to start playing around with that. Make sure I understand how it works. Maybe we'll do a little bit of that. I mean, this is the visualization session, so we'll do whatever we can. All right, this is taking a long time to find my Melbourne weather thing. It didn't open, so I'm going to have to play for time. Oh, I found it. Okay, come on. Let's open this folder so that I can get to it. Here it is. Oh, it did open. Just opened on my other screen. Cool. So I got these. This is the download. What the downloads look like from BOM. You get the max temp, the min temp, and you get it in a CSV form like this in a thing, and the rainfall. So I got those three, and then I built this. This is me viz.
Oh wow!
Kind of made it work, right? Got it pretty close.
You got it pretty close. What are you using for the min and max dotted lines?
Yes, the hack. That's the hack. All right, so we'll talk about that. But it's works. See, look, it's interactive. You can see all the things. There's min and max.
Right.
Yep. So this is a combo chart. It's got so you got the three lines. So and then I just changed them red and blue for the min and yellow for the max. And then this is the average. Now, one thing I couldn't do was the normal range. So I want to add the normal range. And then I had to do a hack to make the bottom work as well, because this is actually a bar chart, right? And so this is a white bar, and then at the bottom, and then there's the difference between the min and the max is the gray part of the bar, and then there's nothing at the top. So you'll notice that it's like it does. You can't see the grid disappears. That's because these are actually bars hiding as things. I can't make transparent bars. So there's like a slight fault.
How did you go with the error bars and creating the error bands? Did that?
Oh, I could have used error bands, so they didn't exist when I built this. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
So maybe I could improve this. But what I really want is to build this in Deneb. I think we build this as a visual. Well, that's what I want to try and do. I think it's possible, and I feel like we could do it. Anyway, that's my thinking. And then I'm going to replace this. Everything else is the same. So I'll show you. I don't think I did anything fancy with the data model. I did not. I've got a calendar and I've got a weather data. That's literally it. So it's not the world's most complicated data model. It's good. Looking at the data itself, I probably just amalgamated all those measures together. So I used my favorite data structure, which is where I have a column for the measure and then a value thing. So I create a key value pair between the measure and the value. And then all of my calculations are going to be, in terms of DAX, are going to be, get this where the measure equals something like that. The reason why I do it this way is because isn't it better, like in DAX, to do it this way? Actually, I want to know this from people. Can we download Bushfighter? That's a good question. Theoretically speaking, DAX is really efficient. It's a column store type thing, right? So if you have this column store, so the other way you could do it is unpivot these two columns, and you would have rainfall and then the value, and then for each day, and then you would have temperature column and then the value for each day, and then you would have min temp or max temp. So you'd have 3 columns instead of 1. And I struggle with this. I don't know whether it's better to do it this way or whether it's better to do it that way. And I want to know what everybody else does. I asked
visualization, it's better to do it that way, because you're going to struggle trying to visualize anything doing it the other way. But I don't know about in terms of storage or whatever performance.
Yeah, so that's the thing, right? Is that sometimes the visual dictates your structure, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Also, your data types, obviously, you can't combine the multiple data types. So yeah, I would much prefer. It's much easier to do visualizations and measures and stuff from one a couple of columns and a long data set, unless the data types are different. That's where the problem lies.
Yeah, so this is okay because rainfall, min temp, and max temp can all be expressed as the same data type. Although you would argue potentially that rainfall could be just an integer because it's the number of millimeters, unless they do. I guess it could be also a decimal. So yeah, so these are all expressed as the same data type. But if one of them was currency or one of them was something else or in a proper integer and the rest were decimals, and you wanted to store them as integers, then you would have to have an integer column and then a decimal column. I have done that as well, right? I had a column, instead of value, it was $, and then another value which was a decimal, and another value which is integer. And I stored them all in three separate columns, and so if it was say an integer, it would have a value in the integer value column, and if it was a decimal, it would have a value in the decimal column. And then I felt like that wasn't very good either, and I struggle with this. Like, I struggle with these stupid little data structure things. Every time I build a report, I think, should I store it this way or should I store it the other way? Can you force the format in DAX, store it as a decimal in format? Yeah, I could force the format in DAX. This is not so much about format. It's almost like about efficiency of the engine, because and also compression, isn't it? It's going to store it much more compressed if they're all the same value and then I store it like this. Although you could argue that measures.
Efficiency and optimization are one thing, but humans have to read this at some point, and if you as the creator
that's the thing.
move on, get hit by the proverbial bus, somebody else has to come in and understand what you did.
Yeah, and I agree, it would be more readable if I had three columns here, right? Rainfall, blah 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 blah. So am I well, maybe Darren can tell me this. There's a tool called DAX Studio we could use to measure the difference. Exactly, Darren. And this is the thing, is that we could look at the difference between the two. I guess on some models it would make a difference. And if you were going to obsess about optimization, you would potentially be like, okay, well, we have to do it this way because we're trying to store a gazillion rows in, and it needs to be super efficient.
A blog by Chris Webb I once read, and I felt like I got told off by my dad because I used to always unpivot my tables, and he's like, no, don't do that, you have to have it this way. See if I can fish it out.
Yeah, so if you can fish it, that's awesome. Exactly, right?
It was the same concept.
People have strong opinions. So I asked Matt Allington this when we did a hack session. I'm like, how do you do it, Matt? Do you store it like this, or do you store it like with multiple columns? And he goes, no, I store it like this. I'm like, okay. So I felt somewhat vindicated that I'd stored it like this. I've gone through phases, and this is the thing, you could look at one of my models from 2017 and it'll store it like this, and then you look at 2018 and it'll have it another way, and then look 2019 and it'll be back to this. I just oscillate between all of these different ideas. And you know why? Is because I found DAX Studio, and then I look at it and I do optimization. I'm like, oh man, this is awesome. Now go down the rabbit hole of optimizing my models. And so every model I build has a different structure. But that whole idea of the visualization driving the structure of the data is such an important one, because I think people underestimate that when they're doing like reporting requirements because there's this tendency to go, yeah, we'll just build something, right? And then if you don't consider what those visuals are going to be, like if you want to put a scatter chart on your visualization, on your report, a scatter chart needs a particular data structure for it to work. And if it's not like that, you're going to run into all this kind of weirdness. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think about this stuff a lot. I don't know if I ever get anywhere. But
I guess when it comes down to me and I think through these things, I think, how big's my data model? Oh, it's not very big. Doesn't really matter.
Well, if
it's
not
that huge, for me, I just get on with it. I can stop.
Yeah,
pondering.
How I know. Yeah, Michael and I sit here and agonize over what if this had 1 billion rows? What would it be efficient? Yeah, that's right. This way you can create a set of measures and then filter by the measures column. See, exactly, Stephen. You can create a measure column this way. And then they brought in calculation groups, and I'm like, but what does that mean for my life? And so yeah, there's I have a lot of problems when it comes to thinking about data. Anyway, so I digress, but that is the structure of the data.
I don't know how to search the site. There's no search button. There it is. Found it.
Okay, cool. Send us the link.
Yeah.
All right. So I was on a mission with this because I was like, I want to make the coolest visualization I know, and this is the coolest. This is all I did. This is as good as it gets from Greg. I think the rainfall one's pretty easy. This is just a cumulative total over the month. So it's a month to date calculation. So that's actually not too bad. And then I put this little blue bar in, which was your actual rainfall on the day. I thought I'd add that as a bonus, which I thought was pretty cool too. So what I should do is make that blue bar inverted and put little dots at the end, and then that would be like Kerry's rainfall thing. So now I'm starting to come up with ideas. All right. So the second, okay, so I've got a Deneb question that you might be able to answer, Kerry. If I wanted to make this a single visualization with two charts on it like this, is that possible? Can you do that?
Yes. So the top chart would be a layered visual, and then to create the bottom chart, it's also a layered visual, but you would do a concat, and it would be a vertical concat.
So you can
concat being concatenation, so it's a join.
Yeah, a concatenation of two things. So can you set like, this visual lives here, and then it sits on top of, this is layer 1 and this is layer 2 almost, and layer 1 sits here and layer 2 sits there. Is that? I guess we'll find out. But cool. Okay, that's awesome too. And then the other thing I like about this is this text, which is in the original one as well. We go back to this. In fact, the original one's a little bit more verbose. There's a plain English description of what you're looking at, which I think people skip in their visualization as well. So we've got to make sure we do that. This says bars represent range between daily high and low. Average temperature for the year was 53.4, making 2003 the coldest year since 1978. How good is that as like a piece of text? And then I just replicated that by saying bars represent daily high and low, because I couldn't in a text box back in 2019 when I built this put numbers into it, but now I can because Power BI has come a long way since then. All right. So in order to do this, we probably have to learn a little bit about Deneb, and we're kind of running out of our time. So let's do an introduction to Deneb while we've still got Kerry, and then we'll plan to build this next. This is going to be next week's mission, is to build this visualization in Deneb using the powers of ChatGPT. And maybe we'll hit up Daniel Marsh-Patrick. It's very ambitious. I know. I'm into ambitious projects on this channel for sure. Yeah. All right. Did we get the calculation groups needs Darren's tool? Yeah, that's true. All right. So Deneb, how many people is in the chat? There's 30, 40 people here. Put a 1 in the chat if you've never heard of Deneb and you're not sure what it is or how it works. I want to know how many people we're dealing with in terms of no one knows what Deneb is. Okay, great. Well, I'm surprised Graham hasn't seen Deneb. Okay, cool. Jenny, Jared. Okay, there's a few. We've got 4 so far. All right. That's enough for me to do an intro. Quick intro to Deneb. All right. So one of the interesting things, and I think, man, it's like, I don't even know where to begin with Deneb. Where do you start with Deneb? Do you start with declarative? No, that's too much. If we wanted to express the visualizations in Power BI as code, what would we do? Let me start there. So, a very clever New Zealand man decided that Power BI, so there's lots of ways you can build custom visualizations in Power BI, right? You can build your own using what can only be described as a horrific series of tools and code to make a custom visualization work. Like you can build them as per the native ones, but it is difficult. You have to run like almost like a virtual machine to make the thing work, and then inside that you have to know, and you're writing in TypeScript, which is like advanced JavaScript. And it's hard work. And even people who build visualizations, I'm sure will agree with me, like will say, yeah, you can build custom data visuals in Power BI and it's open source and all that kind of stuff, but it's not easy to do. And it's almost not worth it unless you've got a really strong business case for it. And so when I first did this, that was the only option, was you either used the standard visuals or you built your own using this kind of horrible custom visual building tools. And then a few brave souls learned how to do it really well. And one of those brave souls was a guy called Daniel Marshpatrick. And he decided that it was too hard because it's too hard, right? And so he went on a mission to figure out how can we build custom visualizations more easily inside Power BI, whereas let's say you've got exactly this type of thing. I want to build this thing, but the Power BI standard visualizations don't support exactly what I want to do. Or I have to do hacks to make it work, or I can only do partially, so I can kind of do it like I got to a pretty good place here, but I want to make it even better. I want to make it exactly like what we want it to do. And so in the data visualization, sort of programmatical data visualization world, there's this programming language called Vega, and then there's a light version of it called Vega Lite. Now that Vega is what you see when you basically, it's the language that that websites use when they're building data visualizations, right? So it's a language to describe in JavaScript or whatever, what the visualization needs to look like on the page. So let me bring up a thing about Vega and Vega Lite, because that's probably useful at this stage. Vega data viz. So Vega, and here's I'll link to the Vega GitHub so you can see what I'm looking at here, and I'll drag this over here. So some very smart people on the internet, don't know who they are, they came up with this Vega language, right? And this is a language to describe what data visualizations look like on the page, right? And it's basically JSON. So that's a super common format, and it's very easy for people who do JavaScript and web developers and all that kind of stuff to understand. And obviously JSON is kind of the language of the internet. Even us data people now are using JSON all the time inside different tools like Fabric and stuff to define all sorts of different things. So they created this JSON structure for describing a data visualization. And it's incredibly complex. You can see, like, you can do all sorts of crazy stuff in terms of how the Vega specification works. And so then they made a light version of that because this is too complicated. And so this is the light version. So it's a grammar of interactive graphics. There you go. For generating visualizations on the web. And you can see you can do some pretty cool visualizations. You can do bubble plots and all sorts of cool stuff. So if you're a web developer, you can generate your own visualizations using this language, Vega Lite. And so Daniel Marshpatrick was like, hey, you know what's really cool? Vega Lite. And you know what's also cool? Power BI. Let's make something where you can build, because in Vega Lite, I can build whatever I want as long as I know how to declare it and make it work inside the on the screen. And then all we need then is just a custom visual that reads Vega or Vega Lite and presents that onto the screen. And he called that Deneb, which I don't know where the name. Do you know where the name comes from, Kerry?
Yeah, so Vega is a star, and there's a thing called Altair, which I can't remember,
here it
is Vega in
Python.
Yeah, and then so that's a star, and then Deneb is the third in the trio.
Really? He's a smart guy, that DMP. All right. So there you go. It's named after stars.
Yeah.
So this is declarative visualization in Power BI which is Deneb. So the good thing about having declarative languages means that you're expressing stuff in code. This actually is super important in the world of like DevOps, because what you want to be able to do is recreate something from scratch if you lose the lot, right? And the only way to do that reliably is through like declarative languages. And so this is why having declarative languages is so important, and why I like Deneb so much, because I think it just is a step in the right direction. And actually what I'd really like would be, and I don't know if this ever gets discussed in the visualization space in the Power BI things, Kerry, but I think the whole canvas should be declarative. Like you should be able to say, create a canvas, X is 2000, Y 2000, and then here is what's on the canvas, and then here is the properties of each one of those things. Because if you were able to do that, then you can roll that also into the all of the DevOps and data ops processes for application development and all this kind of stuff, which means that you can reliably recreate from the language itself like the screen as it should look. And I don't know, that would be so cool. But right now we rely
use Dash
on
for that.
Yeah, you could use Dash. Yeah. I once built a political party seat visual in Deneb. Oh, look, Darren built this one. Political parties in
cool.
Deneb. That is cool. I like that. That every time the election comes around, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do a political party seat visualization, and then I don't do it. But I'm glad someone's doing that. It's awesome. Get right into it for a week. It's the same thing happens like when the budget comes on. I'm like, oh, the budget just got released. I'm going to do a big old visualization like on Power BI, interactive visualization, show all the budget, where does all the money go? And then I'm like, a week later I give up. Yeah, maybe next year. Maybe next year. Every May it happens around when the budget comes out. Yeah. All right, so that's Deneb, right? So it's a language to describe visualization on the screen. And then the Deneb visual, which we'll be able to get from the App Store here, is basically just a visual that reads Deneb code and puts it into the aquarium's still there. That's so awesome. Or is that a new one?
It's been updated. I think it was taken down.
Are you serious? Aquarium, the goat of custom visuals. Yeah. Oh, it has been updated. It's got sharks. That's hilarious.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, and whales. Oh my god, I'm getting it. All right. Anyway, sorry. So speaking of custom visuals, this is the one.
Now you just need an audio to go with that.
That's true. I'm definitely
Baby shark.
Doing that. Don't. Hey, I just read on your blog you were complaining about an earworm, and then you've subjected us all to that. Okay, here's Deneb. Okay, so we can go and get Deneb from the App Store, and then we can use Vega code to create custom visuals inside Power BI, which I think is probably the easiest way to do it. There's a few other options. You could do stuff in Python. You could do it in R. You could do it in Charticulator, which is the coolest name of a visual ever, but they're all just a little hard to use. Every single one of them. I like this one because I can get ChatGPT to write it for me. No, well, I'm definitely going to try. That's what I'm going to practice this week before we do it all next week. But this is what we're going to do. We're going to. Oh, sorry. Go.
If you get it to work with ChatGPT, honestly, I'll buy you a beer.
Will you? All right.
And you have to tell me your secret.
100%. That challenge is on. Next week, I'm going to have a working ChatGPT Deneb building machine. I don't know. Well, I'm going to try, and then I expect a beer. That's it, people. That's what we're going to do. We're going to use Deneb to build this visualization. We're going to try anyway. I will ask Daniel Marspatrick if he wants to join me, especially because I'm probably going to get stuck. Kerry, you're more than welcome to join us again next week. That would be great to have you.
Cool. All right, yeah.
Let me know. No pressure. But that's going to be it. That's what we're going to talk about. And then I'd like to explore more kind of like if there's other visas, like we might need to work our way up to building this one, right? So because like I like Deneb, but I don't do it very often, and I need to learn it probably a little bit better before I can do the thing that I actually want to do. So we'll build a couple of simple Deneb stuff, you know, get our head around how it kind of fits together, and then we'll go from there. And then hopefully by the end of it, we'll be Deneb gurus, and we can build anything we ever want in Power BI, and away we go. That's the plan. Anyway, folks, I think that's the end of lunchtime. So we can't learn any more today. We'll have to wait till next week. But thanks for having me. Thanks to Kerry for coming along. I really appreciate it. It's great to see you again. And yeah, we'll catch up next week. We'll start our little journey into the Deneb world, into the data viz world. I hope you can join me. But until then, we'll see you later. I'm going to stop the recording, and yeah, I'll hang around, of course, and chat. That'll be it. Thanks very much.